All right, folks, file this under the category of dehypnosis. I'm going to dehypnotize you from the brainwashing that's been inserted into your head by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, pay attention. Big Pharma has caused you to self-identify with a disease or the medications they sell you to supposedly treat that disease. And the proof of this is in the language that you use, in the language that you hear all around you to describe pharmaceuticals and disease states. I'm going to give you specific examples so that you can now become aware of how pharmaceutical companies are brainwashing you, and the media, of course, is all brainwashing you to self-identify as being diseased. So here it is. And my name is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, by the way. You can hear all my podcasts at healthrangerreport.com. Read my articles at naturalnews.com and visit my food science laboratory at labs.naturalnews.com. Science.naturalnews.com is a searchable database of 12 million published peer-reviewed science articles, if you want to check that out. All right, now, getting to the dehypnosis here. Here's how it works. First, let's talk about the possessive use of pharmaceutical terminology in language. When a doctor, or let's say a pharmacist, is giving you they're filling a prescription for you, they will talk to you in a possessive way, saying this is your medicine, and you will talk to them in a possessive way by saying that is my prescription. All right, now this may sound subtle, and it is. I'm going to give you far more powerful examples here shortly. But it is, instead of saying, oh, this is the doctor's prescription, most patients will say, this is my prescription, that's my medicine, that's my blood pressure meds. And family members will ask you questions like, did you take your meds? Yeah, they're your meds. They're yours. And the vaccine industry really drives this into your head by saying things like, did you get your vaccine shot yet? Now, if you think about the semantics of this, the linguistic breakdown of what's being said here, when they say, did you get your vaccine shot, it implies that each person has a vaccine reserved for them. Like your name is on it somewhere, and if you don't claim it, you're missing out. You see, that's how the logic works here. It's a very clever neuro-linguistic programming trick. It's called NLP. And NLP has been used by many, many bureaucrats and politicians, but also the CDC and the drug companies and advertisers and marketers. And NLP, like any tool, can be used ethically to achieve good things for people. It's a therapeutic modality that helps a lot of people heal, but it can also be used for evil, for unethical influence and control over people, which is how the pharmaceutical industry uses it. And part of that is this possessive form of the language. So again, did you get your vaccine shot yet? You see, that's a loaded question. And well, without getting too technical here, let me describe something quite fascinating. The reason this works to influence people to get vaccine shots when they probably shouldn't in most cases, the reason it works is because your brain is hardwired to process language, and you cannot turn it off. Now, this is really crucial to understand. Now, let's say you walk into a bar in Pakistan, and you don't speak the language that they're speaking in Pakistan. And, well, I guess there are many different languages they speak. Let me pick an easier country. You walk into a bar in China, and you don't speak Chinese. You hear a bunch of sounds. 你好, 你好不好, 你要喝茶吗? 不要. Whatever you're hearing, all this stuff doesn't make any sense to you. Your brain doesn't process it, so those words bounce off of you, in essence. They don't go into your head. They don't change the way you think about anything, because you don't understand Chinese, right? But if you walk into a bar in America, or wherever you are, Canada, English-speaking country, whatever, and you hear English words, your brain automatically processes those words whether you want to or not. Your brain is designed to parse language even if you consciously choose to reject an idea, you must first parse it in order to be able to make the decision to reject it, which means your brain has to imagine the very thing that you're hearing, even if it's not true. Let me give you a perfect example. What if I said, your skin is blue? All of you listening, all your skin is blue. You are like Smurfs. You're all Smurfs, let's say. Now, you're obviously thinking, no, my skin's not blue. But in order to even reach that conclusion, you had to first parse what is blue, what is skin, who am I? Apply the blue to the skin, to me, imagine it, and then reject it because it's not true, right? But you had to first imagine it. Your brain parsed it. Your brain interpreted it. And these concepts move through the neural network, which is your brain, before you had a chance to consciously reject them. Because language parsing is unconscious. I hope you follow what I'm saying on this. I'm not trying to get too technical. The point is that the pharmaceutical industry, when they say, did you get your vaccine shot yet? They know that they're inserting into your brain the idea that there's a vaccine shot with your name on it and that you and that vaccine belong to each other, that you're supposed to get one. And adding the word yet on the end of it with a question mark means it's implied that you're supposed to get one, and you might be kind of late getting one, and you better get one soon if you haven't gotten one already. So it's a loaded question, but it's using this technology of NLP for a nefarious, malicious purpose to manipulate someone into buying a product, a vaccine, that may cause extreme harm to them. Does that make sense? So let's move on. I'm not trying to turn this into a neurolinguistic programming class, but it's important to understand the basics here. If you listen to people like President Obama, he's a master of NLP. Just telling you, just saying. If you want to hear NLP, just listen to Obama. It's astonishing. Now, moving on. Let's talk about disease states. Now, the medical system and the pharmaceutical industry and the drug companies have taught you and programmed you and all of us in society to talk about yourself as being self-identified with a disease state. And here's how that sounds. People say, quote, I am diabetic. Now that, you've heard that probably thousands of times. Maybe you've said it yourself. I am diabetic. It means that you self-identify as it's kind of like the equivalent of saying, I am African American, let's say, or some people might say they are gay, for example. It's a self-identity statement. I am diabetic. All right, but let's parse it. What is diabetes? Well, let's narrow this to type 2 here. I'm not referring to type 1. Type 2 is an expression of imbalanced metabolism that has symptoms of insulin resistance in the cells. The cells are unable to bring in the insulin, and thus you have elevated insulin levels, and you're not able to manage blood sugar properly in your body. These are expressions of biology that are not who you are, but rather expressions of something that's imbalanced at the moment that can be reversed. Let me give you a great example of what I'm talking about. What are other expressions of your biology that are temporary states, but not really a disease? Well, if you run up a flight of stairs 10 times, you're going to be huffing and puffing, right? You're going to be, just ran up the stairs. Your heart rate is elevated, you're sweating, and you're huffing and puffing. Are you diseased? No, you're not diseased. Your body is expressing a physiological state or a combination of states that you might call overexertion, right? But overexertion is a temporary state that can be brought back into balance by, for example, allowing yourself to catch your breath, get more oxygen, resupply the muscles in your body with oxygen. Well, type 2 diabetes is much the same thing. What if you resupplied your body with nutrients? What if you avoided a sedentary lifestyle and started exercising and started moving the blood in your body, boosting circulation, taking in more vitamin D, and eliminating entirely from your diet processed sugars, liquid sugars, carbohydrates, white flour, not all carbohydrates, but I mean processed foods and liquid sugars, especially high fructose corn syrup, things like that. Well, if you do those things, your body will recover. Type 2 diabetes will disappear. Why? Because type 2 diabetes is not you. It's not part of your genetic code. It's not part of your leg. It's not a structure in your body. You are not diabetic. And that's why the language of saying I am diabetic is so self-sabotaging. It's so destructive to your psyche. To say I am diabetic is to surrender to the disease, which is exactly what the pharmaceutical industry wants you to do. They want you to think that you're going to be diabetic for life. And they want you to buy into their fraudulent offer of being able to, quote, manage your disease rather than reversing it or curing it or preventing it. I've seen type 2 diabetes reversed in as little as 4 days through juice fasting, drinking nothing but vegetable juice, fresh vegetable juice made every morning in your own kitchen for 4 days. I've seen type 2 diabetes reversed. You may not know this, but I used to be borderline type 2 diabetic. Yeah, many years ago, I was borderline obese and borderline type 2. Why am I not diabetic today? Why do I not refer to myself as being diabetic? Because that expression of my physiology is no longer something that I experience. Why? Because I made changes in my food, in my exercise level, in my nutritional supplementation, in my avoidance of liquid sugars, giving up soda, for example. And so when I change the inputs, I change the physiology. The physiology no longer reflects the symptoms that are called diabetes. This is crucial to understand. Medicine does not name what you are. Let me clarify. When medicine says a disease name like cancer or diabetes or heart disease, it's technically not describing what you are. It's describing a pattern of symptoms that is observed by a medical practitioner. So what is cancer? Cancer is the name given to a pattern of symptoms observed by medical professionals. But does that mean that you are cancer? Well, of course not. You are not cancer. You are not one giant tumor. Cancer is not your self-identity. Cancer is something that is happening at the cellular level inside your body that is the mal-expression or the imbalanced, off-kilter expression of cellular metabolism. But it's not who you are. You are not cancer. So why would you say that you are diabetic? See, it makes no sense, does it? You also hear a lot of people say, like, I am bipolar, or I am depressed. Well, here's another one. I have heart disease, or I have cancer. This word have is another very, very insidious verb that's used throughout the medical industry to capture and ensnare people in this self-identity trap. To say I have heart disease or I have cancer, it implies that cancer is something external that has invaded you and assaulted you and taken over, and like malaria. To say I have malaria actually makes sense because malaria is an infection from outside your body spread by mosquitoes, right? The mosquitoes inject the bacteria into your body, right? And this gives you malaria. Malaria is not a virus. Malaria is a bacteria, I believe. Yeah, I think I'm correct on that. I'm not a malaria expert, but I'm pretty sure it's a bacteria, not a virus. So malaria is something that you get, just like Ebola is something that you get, and Ebola is a virus. So you can catch something like Ebola from the outside to the inside. Now you are infected with Ebola or what have you, whatever it is. That makes sense. But to say that you have cancer using the same language that you would use to say you have malaria makes no sense. You don't have cancer. Your body is simply expressing a pattern of symptoms that is labeled cancer by the medical establishment. But it's not who you are, and it's not your identity, and it's not permanent. That's the other important thing. It's not a permanent state. It can be changed. It can be prevented in nearly all cases. It can be reversed in many, many cases. Not all, but many, especially if the situation is identified early on. And yet the pharmaceutical industry brainwashes you to think that there is no cure. How many times have you heard that? There is no cure. Oh, we're searching for the cure. Come on, let's wear our little pink bracelets and pink ribbons, and let's raise money to run around in circles for fundraisers. We're going to walk in circles and run in circles. People will pay us by the mile to raise money to do what? To search for the cure. Well, if we're searching for the cure, it must mean there isn't one, right? Why would we be searching for something if we already had it? So, must mean there is no cure. So if you have cancer, you're screwed. That's the brainwashing, the hypnosis, if you will, of the pharmaceutical industry. And you, most of you listening to this, have at one time or another in your life bought into that bunk. Now, many of you have already rejected that, and good for you. Good for you. It's time to take back your own mind. Take back your own self-identity and realize you are not a disease. Those vaccines don't have your name on them. Those prescription drugs are not your prescriptions. Those are drugs that are pushed onto you and shoved down your throat by the doctors who are bribed by the drug companies to make money selling you chemicals that probably won't help you and are very likely to actually hurt you. Go look at pharmadeathclock.com if you want to see the numbers of how 1 million people a year are killed by medicine, or almost 1 million. Yeah, pretty crazy. So take back your own psyche, take back your identity, and stop using the language that the drug companies have taught you to hypnotize yourself. And just to summarize, and then I'll wrap this up here, to summarize, never refer to yourself as being diabetic or having cancer or having heart disease or any of these conditions or having Alzheimer's. The correct way, the healthy way to describe these situations if you encounter them, let's take diabetes, is to say, hey, my doctor has labeled a set of physiological symptoms that fit the pattern of something that he calls diabetes. That's a healthy way to say it. Or you could even say, my body is currently expressing a pattern of symptoms that the medical establishment calls diabetes. Doesn't mean you are diabetic or that you have diabetes. You're simply expressing a physiology that can be changed. Because I hope that you believe in the laws of cause and effect, right? You do believe that the universe is run by cause and effect? This is not a magical voodoo universe. It's not like voodoo diseases where one day you're walking along and suddenly you have diabetes because someone stuck a pin in your voodoo doll. Like that's what medicine, that's how medicine trains people to think diseases happen. It's called spontaneous disease. This is their model. And it's voodoo. It's quackery. It's complete bunk. They think, oh, you're walking down the street one day, you're totally healthy, and then wham, whoa, you have cancer. And they tell you things, oh, there's nothing you could have done about it. That's what they tell you. Oh, it's just your genes. Just in your genes. These are lies. The truth is, there's always something you can do to prevent disease. You can change your eating habits. You can change your exercise habits. You can reduce exposure to pesticides. You can eat organic. You can do juicing. You can grow some of your own food. There are a million things that you can do to prevent all of these chronic degenerative diseases. Now, there may be a very small subset, well, there is a small subset of conditions that are purely genetic mutations, but those are extremely rare, extremely rare. Most people are dealing with disease conditions that are physiological expressions of their own health expressions that could be prevented and in most cases reversed. So the medical industry does not want you to realize this. It's way too much freedom in your hands. They want you to think that disease is spontaneous, that you have no control over your disease states, but when you are afflicted with disease, then that becomes who you are. That's your identity, period. And now you have to take their drugs for a lifetime in order to be normal, in order to be healthy, even though you're never really healthy when you're taking their drugs, in order to control the disease or manage the symptoms. These are key words. And if you happen to do something that cures your cancer, they won't even say you're cured. They'll just say, you're in remission, but you still have cancer. You're just in remission. Wow, what a wonderful, inspiring system of medicine, isn't it? And then their cancer drugs, of course, give you more cancer. Chemotherapy causes cancer. Mammograms cause cancer because they emit ionizing radiation that causes DNA mutations. Once again, cause and effect. If you don't believe that mammograms cause radiation, cause cancer, then you don't believe in the laws of physics. And that's a pretty lonely place for you to be. If you don't believe in the laws of physics, maybe you think the earth is flat too. And, that's, I don't know. That's a pretty sketchy type of belief system, if you ask me. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, my goal is to help you, number one, realize where you are using the self-hypnosis language of Big Pharma in a very unhealthy way in your own talking and word choice. And number two, stop doing that. Stop referring to yourself as being in a disease state or having cancer or having heart disease if that's what you've been told. Change your language and you change your options. Why? Because your words and your mind are intimately connected. So if you change your language, you change your options. If you change your options, you change your life. You change your outcome. That's how I went from being borderline obese, borderline type 2 diabetic, to being in a state of perfect health. A state of such outstanding, incredible health that in my 40s, I learned how to run a science lab. I learned how to do PhD level work with scientific instrumentation. I was able to learn additional language. I speak 3 languages now. And things keep getting easier cognitively. As I age, things keep getting easier. My learning keeps increasing. My memory keeps increasing. My physical abilities aren't as good as they were in my 20s, but I certainly don't feel old. I feel healthy and vibrant. And it's because I don't talk myself into being diseased, and I don't eat the toxic junk foods. So you can share in this too. And I hope you understand this is coming from my heart and my spirit to your heart and your spirit. I mean, you may have noticed I'm not trying to sell you something here. I'm trying to awaken you. So take back your own health. Take back your own life. Take charge of who you are. Don't let these damn doctors and hospitals and death merchants and pharmaceutical companies twist your brain around with their manipulative words into thinking that you're a victim for life and that you have no choice but to take their drugs. That's the way they operate. That's the way they control you. Don't let them do it to you. Be free. Again, change your words and you change your options. Change your options and you change your outcome. My name is Mike Adams. I'm the Health Ranger. You can hear more of my podcast at healthrangerreport.com. Take care.